All right. You ready to rock?
Let's roll.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for jumping on this podcast, listening to us. Took a quick break, but we are coming back revamped after the end of 2022 and looking to take this podcast to another level and have some fun with it and have a little bit more structure. But as you may know, I'm Kadyn and Ninny out of Phoenix, and we have Nate Fain out of Pensacola, Florida.
The Redneck Riviera. Checking in from the Redneck Riviera, baby.
I got nothing for the high desert. I'll just leave it at that. But we're back. Just really excited for this new format. I think we'll be able to talk on a few more things. With a little bit, like I said, more structure and bring a little bit more value. But how we're going to do it going forward is each episode we're going to talk on something we learned this week. We want to be pretty open and honest, and we don't know everything, whether it's mortgage related, life related, mindset related. I want to talk on something we learned each week, and we can talk on that for 10, 15 minutes. And then we're going to be having a guest on each and every week. We have our first guest waiting in the wings and should be a pretty good conversation. And I'm very much looking forward to it. You got anything to add, Nate, on that?
Well, I mean, you know, when you first came to me with this idea, first of all, it took months to wear me down to finally.
I'm persistent, people.
Right. Finally agree to do a podcast. But, you know, we used the first, 5-6 months to just kind of figure out, like, what do we actually want to do with this? Because we knew we wanted to do something, but we didn't really have a plan. And I think over the last 4 or 5 months, we've kind of figured out that, like, at the end of the day, we want to add value to people's lives, whether that be through entertainment, but also like education. So, like, we really want to bring in some people who have different insights into either real estate or mortgage. We want to be able to learn from them and other people that are listening / watching us to learn from them. And then also just share with y'all some of the stuff that we've learned. You know, not sharing is caring. And I, because of my background being a child of several educators, like, I feel the need to share knowledge when I have it. I don't like to necessarily gatekeep. So I think that's kind of where the direction that we're going in now. Like any good thing, like, if you have a good idea, a lot of times, like, a pivot is necessary.
100%. And I mean, we said this from the beginning when I first brought it up to you, that we knew how we started was not how it was going to end or continue. I think towards the end of the year, we noticed how we wanted it to change, and we were totally prepared for that. And I think this is definitely in the right direction.
Well, and something that kind of there's a little bit of imposter syndrome in that, like, why that's what I've been dealing with. But it's like, why would anybody want to listen to what I have to say? And specifically, like, you and me talking. But then I've gotten some feedback from some people that are in our industry, and they're like, I would love to be a fly on the wall listening to y'all talk, which was phenomenal feedback and encouragement for me. It's like, okay, so there are people that are actually getting some value or entertainment or whatever it is that we're bringing here. It's helpful. It's useful. It's something that adds something to, whether it be 3 or 4 dozen people, like, or 3 or 4,000 people, or wherever it ends up going. Like, I just want to add something to someone's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, when we first started this, our target audience was one thing. And I feel like it has changed when you mention people in the industry. And I think there is value, not so much in just, you know, I'm sure there's some things that we will say that bring value, but it's more so giving, like you said, a voice to others who have different perspectives around the country. We know quite a few people in the industry, and they'll be able to talk on different scenarios. You know, I think what we both can agree on is this is going to be very, very helpful for someone who was just in my position a year and a half, 2 years ago, of just starting, and you get to hear potentially some mortgage mindset, life related stuff that might help along the way, which, like I told you, when I started looking for stuff, there wasn't anything.
Well, and, you know, like, one of the things that I try to communicate with people, and something that I've learned, a skill that I've learned over the years, is, like, I don't have to listen to a marketer talk specifically about mortgage content for me to learn from them. It's important to be able to break down those fundamentals and those principles that it doesn't matter what industry you're in, and take little bits of that information and little snippets of those tips and apply it to your business. So in a perfect world, like, yeah, most likely most of our viewers or listeners are going to be in real estate in some way, shape, or form. But I think that we're also going to add a lot of information that anybody who is an entrepreneur or owns a business, or they are essentially self-employed and running a business, I think they'll get a lot of use from. Specifically, if you're starting out or you're just trying to level up. Sometimes I discount the fact that I've been doing this for 10 years, and that in and of itself is a miracle sometimes. The dropout rate in our industry is not a lot of people make it to 10 years. And those that normally do, I now feel the need to share a lot of what I've learned over the last 10 years so that people behind me can learn from my 10 years of mistakes that I make still every single day, some of these mistakes. And I learn every single day. So at the end of the day, I want to be a resource and to help people shorten the learning curve.
Yeah. And I'll even say, you mentioned something yesterday, is you don't want the good ones to drop out, especially right now in a tougher market. But if we can provide a little bit of info and information, sweet Lord, Kadyn. But if we can provide some sort of, sounding board or something that they can just listen to, and keep them in it, that'd be amazing.
It goes back to, we're going to go back to the fundamental of creating content for other people and not necessarily for ourselves, and doing it where we're adding value unselfishly. But in the meantime, from my standpoint, selfishly, I'm really excited to listen and learn from a lot of people that I probably wouldn't connect and have an hour-long conversation with otherwise. Yeah. The guy that we're talking to today, Dom, I know him from a fantasy football league, but until we really kind of did a pre-pod meeting yesterday, I didn't know much about him. I didn't realize how much I had in common with him. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's going to be more of that along the way, which is probably the best part about it. We should probably get on to our next segment before we bring him on. He's probably waiting in the wings going, what the heck is going on in there? But trying to do this new thing, like I talked about, what we learned this week. We've had a few weeks to think on this first one, but if you want to start it off, we can kind of touch on, this is going to be a wide range of things. So this is whatever's top of mind for us.
So for me, I do a lot of research on strategy when it comes to social media or marketing in general. So this first one has to do with hashtags, and the utility of hashtags and the effectiveness of hashtags has really changed a lot over the last few years. And we'll link this in the podcast somehow.
Description somewhere. Yeah.
So there's an article, and it's from Social Pilot, in which I've read a lot of their stuff before, and I really like a lot of the information they put out there. I don't know anybody over there, but it seems to be a lot of really cool stuff. But in this article, it talks about how hashtag strategy, what the ideal hashtag strategy in 2023 looks like, and how many hashtags you should use, what the hashtag should be about, and what that does for your content. So used to, a lot of marketers would say, all right, anywhere between 20 and 30 hashtags per post is what you need to do. It need to be relevant, but they need to be there was a whole system. There needs to be some that have over 1 million views or posts. And then there's some that need to be super specific and super small. And then there's some mid-range. There used to be a whole strategy that I used to see, and it seems like a lot of that's going away. Even the CEO of Instagram came out, I think it was sometime last year, and said that the effectiveness of hashtags and the way that they work is not the same as it used to, and it really does not add that much to your post. That being said, in this article, it talks about how there is an engagement spike of over 12.6% by just using one hashtag. But the common theme throughout this entire article is really you need to post and have somewhere between 2 and 5 hashtags max per post. And then you need to be relevant. It's not necessarily going to help you with a huge reach, but it will help tell the algorithm who to show your content to. So if I've interacted and engaged with a video that had the hashtag mortgage before, Instagram then knows, okay, I'm interested in mortgage content. So if another post comes along and it's got hashtag mortgage or hashtag mortgage rates or something like that, something related to mortgages, Instagram is more likely to then show me that content because I have a history of engaging with that content. So there is a searchability advantage to having some of these hashtags, but I just don't think that is the main use for it. I think it's more to help the algorithm categorize your content. I don't think they're as powerful as they used to be, because you got to think like, when Instagram first started hashtags, they were still begging people to post content. I think we're to the point on almost every single platform now where it's like, okay, we've got enough content. Now it's time to figure out like who fits where, because a lot of people want to talk about algorithms and they want to battle the algorithm. Like, okay, well, I'm going to try to trick the algorithm, or I'm going to do this to the algorithm. Like, at the end of the day, the algorithm is there so that the platform can take your content and show it to someone who's interested in that content, so that that person stays on the platform. The algorithm actually is there to help you. And both of you, meaning me and the platform, we have a vested interest in you staying and watching our video. So it's less about battling the algorithm and actually like working with it. So using a couple 3 hashtags every single, that's a Southern term, by the way, couple 3
few.
Couple 3 hashtags every single post helps categorize it and helps out the algorithm. Like, okay, this is what this video is about, and this is who would possibly be interested in this video.
Yeah, and I mean, when you first brought this up to me, I kind of had this idea, because especially when you see, this is what you talked on was very much Instagram. TikTok's a whole nother animal, because that's turning into a whole nother search engine, which is crazy. I saw the other day that if you go into the comments, at the top of the comments, you can go search blank. Like it puts together. I'm like, this is some next level stuff right now going on in TikTok. But then you bring it over to Instagram, it's a dumbed down search engine. And that's what that's what the hashtags are doing now. But it also, I mean, it's not gonna push it out reach wise, but it does still allow for people, like I said when you first brought it up, like Phoenix foods, like Phoenix restaurants. Like if you do that and you're highlighting a restaurant, that's perfect for that.
Perfect.
Hashtag mortgage, a little tougher, more vague.
Very broad.
But it at least puts it into a bucket for Instagram. So I mean, and you got to be smart. You can't be doing 30. Like, the algorithm's smart, but it's like, well, if you're going to give me 30 things, like, I don't know.
Well, it got to the point where I think it confused the algorithm. It's like, what are we actually show? Like, what is this video about? And who do we need to show this to? So, I think even using like hashtags in your story, it talks about your stories as well. Even using a couple hashtags there can help with some reach as well. But, I saw some commercials for TikTok over the weekend, and you touched on this earlier, but talking about the searchability and just like the search function that TikTok is really trying to pivot towards. I think that they're trying more so to compete with Google and YouTube as opposed to Instagram. I think there's so much short content out there that I think a lot of people, like the first thing that people do when they don't know something is they go to Google, or if they want to see how to fix something like a broken pipe or whatever, they go to YouTube. I think TikTok is trying to do that as well, because really, when you think about it, like that is a great formula for long-term success for that platform, is to be that competitor with Google, to where people go there and it's a resource, whether that be entertainment or education. Like, they want to be a resource. It's not just a social media, social networking thing. They want to now be a resource, which is exactly how Google and YouTube did it. I mean, like they want to be a resource there, so much so that like when you don't know something, your gut reaction is like, I'll just go Google this, or I'll go look it on YouTube. TikTok is now trying to do that. You don't really see Instagram doing that. No. Instagram seems like it's more about networking and marketing. And I think that's really smart of TikTok to like, okay, like nobody else is competing with them, but we're new enough to where we can kind of pivot to that.
Yeah. And they're doing a really good job of it. So last thing I'll say on this, but like there used to be a panic if you missed, like if you accidentally refresh TikTok, maybe a year and a half year ago, you didn't get to see that video ever again unless you saved it. Forever. Gone. Now it's literally three words in search engine, and you can bring it right up real quick. Crazy.
Yep. Crazy. It's crazy to see how much this platform's changed, and they've come a long way when it comes to like putting the user first. They're making it more user friendly. Not so sure about creator friendly, which is a whole other conversation, but user friendly, like it's becoming more and more user friendly, and something that people can use in a vast a lot of different ways, you know?
Yes. I'll pivot to what I learned or what I've come together with real quick, and then we can bring in Dom. I won't talk on it too much, but something you and I talk on a lot. We talk about routine, time blocking, and I kind of heard this word on a conversation with a friend actually earlier this week. I think it was like Sunday or Monday, and he mentioned the word structure, and it hit me, and I was like, that's what I need. I don't need a routine. I can't have a routine in the lending business, because you can't have a completely time blocked day. Things pop up. You have to help clients when they need it, depending on the situation. But structure is a different thing, where I think of just this morning. This morning I woke up, go to the gym, get in my sauna time, quick cold plunge, eat breakfast. That was my morning structure. That's what I need to do to be like mentally right and feel good for the rest of the day. And then when I get to the office, my first 2 hours, there can be structure there. Pretty much the afternoons for everyone else. And that's what I'm coming to realize. But if I have that morning structure, I still feel like I did everything that day that I needed to. And then everything else was just the customer service and all the extra, the marketing, anything like that. And God, you and I have talked ad nauseam about this.
Yep. Well, I think I've said this on here before, but the best part about our job is the freedom, and the worst part about our job is the freedom. So like, we can go do whatever we want, and that is a blessing and a curse. So it really takes a disciplined person. And so I like the word structure a little bit more than like routine, because to me, like, for whatever reason, and it's completely mental, but of course, like,
100%.
This is mindset. Like, mindset is mental. So when I hear routine, I think of like rigid, like cannot deviate from this. And I think boring. Like, when you think of routine and you hear the word routine, you hear, oh, here's a routine fly ball. Like, well, okay, if you see a routine fly ball in baseball, you know it's probably okay for you to stand up and go get a hot dog or something like that. Like, you're not going to miss much of anything because it's just a routine pop fly. Versus like the word structure, it's like, okay, this is more than a routine. This is like the almost like the plan for success. And this is just like what I have to do. A routine to me sounds boring, versus a structure sounds more like business oriented to me.
And it's took me a while. I mean, it took me 2 years to kind of start putting it together, but you have to put yourself first, because if you're constantly doing stuff for everyone else all day, you're never going to get what you need done. And whether that's personal, like me going to the gym. I hate the gym, but I love the sauna, and I love the cold plunge because I'm a weirdo and a freak. But like, I have to do that stuff because I know I'm calmer through the day.
Sure.
And if I feel better, then I'm able to talk to other people, including my wife, just everyone involved in my life. Everything's better that way.
Right.
So having that structure so that the rest of the day, I mean, all the way down to like making sure I take my vitamins, like, just do it. Yeah.
Well, it's, I love that you're learning this so early, because I'm 10 years in and like, I'm just now learning it, which is wild.
But you're controlled chaos. You know what you're doing.
Absolutely controlled chaos. I am.
But it works.
It's worked for me, but it's what I've learned is like, it's not scalable. So you have a much lower ceiling. And speaking from experience, like the biggest regret that you can have in life is not reaching your potential in something. I mean, like I've done it before with so many things. I'm very blessed that I'm very talented at a lot of different things, but then like I have ridden my natural talent throughout my entire life with a lot of things. Missing that structure, and anything that I have brought structure in is where I've really gone to the next level. I was very talented at golf from when I first started. I started when I was 13. I was really good for a 13-year-old who had been playing for 1 year, but that was pure talent. And then I started getting better and better and better the later high school went on, because I learned structure. I learned, okay, I have to practice this. I have to do this. And then I got to where I was like obsessed with the structure. And that's where the fun part happens for me, is when I get obsessed with the process and the structure. Like, you've heard Gary Vee say this, like, and I thought he was absolutely full of crap when I heard this the first time. He's like, no, I love the process. And I look back on like my social media success and I think about it, and like, I loved the process. I absolutely loved the process of like experimenting and trying to see what worked and what didn't work. And now I'm to the point now where it's like, I know what works, and I'm quite frankly, I'm a little bored by it. So I'm trying to like spice it up and try to find different ways to make it more scalable. But I've figured out a lot of it. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm constantly learning about this stuff, but like I've figured out a lot of it. And now I'm a little bored by it. But then once I reintroduce structure, that's what kind of revitalizes it. And that's what makes it more scalable so that I can take these skills that I've learned and really help it multiply either my business or my influence or whatever your end goal is. Like that's where structure really helps.
Well, it's like talking about sports is the fundamentals. So once you have the fundamentals down, you can go on to the next thing. And talking on where I am versus you, I'm still trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. And really piecing together, having this bucket of, okay, what works? And then you're like, cool, keep doing that, but then keep dabbling in and keep researching. Little R&D department over here. Yeah. But yeah, that's the quick little, it's really not that big of a difference, structure, routine, but whatever mindset you need to have to make it happen. I just think it fits our lifestyle and how we operate. So that's why it kind of clicked in my head of like, oh, just think of it like that. Because I've talked to you about routine, and the word routine scares me because it feels like it doesn't allow for anything spontaneous to happen through the day.
Deviation from it, right?
No. Again, you could have a routine for the morning or whatever. It's just, I hate the word. So it's more so I learned I hate the word routine. So There we go. Yeah.
Well, but it's the same thing of like, I can say something or someone can say something and it doesn't resonate with me or doesn't resonate with you, but so it may resonate with someone else. We all have these like perceptions of certain words and whatever, or phrases or whatever. So it makes total sense.
Yeah. I'll report back on how that goes.
Yeah. We'll see how your structure goes. I'm going to try to get more structured too. And we'll go from there.
Yeah. You ready to bring him on? The man, the myth, the legend. Guest number 1. All right, here we go.
Oh my gosh.
Dominic. He didn't run. He stuck around. He's here.
In the flesh, not
ish.
in the ish.
Thanks for. I said it yesterday, but I'll say it again. Thanks for coming on here and trusting us. I don't know why you would, but for being our first guest, I'll do a little bit of an intro. We have Dominic Landry, mortgage loan officer out of Atlanta, Georgia, with Shelter Mortgage. Appreciate you being on.
Yeah, absolutely honored to be on with you as your first guest. And
yes,
yeah, don't know why I trust you, but hey, we're here, right?
You got to trust your fantasy football commissioner. You have to,
right?
Okay,
or you're out. Or you're out.
Deal.
While we're on that topic,
okay.
True or false? I got to pull this back up. But Dom, like you and I we were bringing up the rear, right?
Absolutely true.
Okay. I hate that, but I also love that for us.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? You got to look at it positively, right? There's nowhere to go but up. So
next year's our year.
Yeah. It's our year.
Wow.
We're already like the Cleveland Browns or like the Boston. like we're like, you know what? Next year's our year.
Already rebuilding. As soon as you draft Miles Sanders in the 3rd round, you're rebuilding.
So my Miles Sanders pick ended up being like a decent pick, but it was all the stuff that fell into place after because I panicked for the Miles Sanders that really screwed me over. Like my first 3 picks were fine. And then, the 3rd pick, Miles Sanders was not part of my structure. Okay. Like he was not part of the plan. And then I picked him and everything started moving very quickly for me at that point.
Things can get out of hand. Things can just, they fall apart. Little Mount St. Helens everywhere.
You learn a lot about yourself on fantasy football draft day.
Your prep, everything.
Yeah.
But we didn't hop on to talk fantasy football. I would love to. Trust me, I would. But we're here to talk about Dom. Dom, let's do this. Can you give us a quick little background? Like I said, mortgage loan officer. How long have you been doing it? And just like your brief background in lending.
Yeah, absolutely. So got in the business. Day one was like January. Actually, it might even be 3 years to the day. January 2020. And I think it actually was like 3 years to the day. That's crazy. So yeah, January 2020, got in as an LOA. And I had a couple months of, doing my thing. Like, okay, this is what it's going to be. And then as we all know, the world changed.
D-Day.
maybe forever. And COVID hit in March, and so that certainly threw things for a loop. But I don't know. Like, I hear people make comparisons about starting in 2008, like you starting, like, you don't know any better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for somebody like me, like, I saw a lot and touched a lot of transactions that I don't think I would have been able to do, if not for the refi boom and everybody wanting to buy and stuff like that. So did that. I was just an LOA, got my license August of that year. Funny story. So internally, I switched teams because there was a spot that opened up where I could originate. I would still have to be an LOA for somebody, but I could originate also. My team leader, the day I got my license, I called the president of our company. I'm like, hey, like, pass my test. Like, we're good to go. He's like, okay, cool. So my boss, he's in the hospital. He's had 25 blood clots in his lungs that are taken out. He's going to be okay, but that's what's going on. And his LOA just left. So it was like, all right, really getting into the fire now. Yeah. So, having to do all that and stuff. So since August of 2020, I was originating LOA, kind of a Band-Aid. I was your utility guy, right? Do a little bit of everything. And then so July of 2021 started originating, just solely originating. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
So one of the things that's like fascinating about your story is that, and same thing with Kadyn, is like, y'all don't know any, this is going to sound like really demeaning, but like, y'all don't know any better. Like, you don't know pre-COVID, like, you don't know pre-COVID mortgage and real estate industry that well, which the parallel to that for me was when I got in 2012, like, we were still not in a great spot. And I had the same conversation with some mortgage veterans back then. It's like, dude, like, it's actually a really big advantage that you're starting right now versus like 2004 or 2003, when there was a huge surge of people because the world changed. So like, you starting after the world changed, there were a bunch of LOs that I know, like, they could not adjust, they could not adapt because they were so ingrained and they were so used to the way it was, and they got out of the business. I mean, I know some people that were like very high producers that could not change and could not adapt. They were out of the business soon. So that's like our parallel. It's fascinating to me that like, we both had this huge global event that will influence and change our business forever, and the way that we see our business forever too.
Yeah. And well, I mean, going off of what Dom was saying as well, for me, is like, touching the amount of files that I did, thankfully there was a refi boom. So just to learn the basics before you start getting into more and more purchase business, tough market, not just in general to be in, like you were just saying, but that is the one opportunity that we had, which was amazing. And then you talk about adapting, and I don't know if I've asked you this, Dom, but like, what made you, because you and I connected over social media, I would say early this year. I think I started seeing some of your videos and I'm like, damn, he's got them dialed. But like, what made you start doing videos? Because as you know, we're all about content and social media.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know when I kind of keyed in on video as being like what you need to do. So, well, more background. So before I did this, I sold Facebook advertising, training, and services directly to agents, 95% agents, 5% LOs. And at the tail end, we kind of started to integrate video into it a little bit, like as far as our offer. And so I knew video as a medium was important. But I also knew that, look, average age of an LO is like mid 50s. That's just not something that loan officers do. And so, Instagram, being the smart algorithm that it is, knows who I am, what I do, the accounts I'm looking for. And so I found Neil Holm. And so he was really the first one that I saw like really doing short form in a way that I could see myself doing it. Like, I know Gary Vee has the thing where, you can educate or you can entertain. Like, if the best is where you can have a blend of both, which I still even struggle with. Like, I'm not an entertainer by nature. Like, I'm not going to get up and post a video of me dancing or like, doing that kind of stuff. That's just not, that's not me.
And we thank you for that.
Yeah. So once I saw, no, well, Kadyn does a really, really good job of blending it and doing both. Like my mind, I could do it once and then I wouldn't be able to do it again for 3 months because
It's a dark place up here. You don't want to be in here. You don't want to be up there.
Don't go down that path, Dom.
Yeah, well, so I'd be spent. Like I have no ideas that on that creative side, but education, like, yeah, I can script all day. So I was like, well, there's a vacuum, right? Like there's not a lot of people doing it. I'm comfortable with doing it. Like I've never had a problem. A lot of people freak out putting themselves on camera. I just don't. Like we've all other advantage for us on the lower side of the hill, Nate. We grew up with cell phones and social media, right? So we're used to putting ourselves out there and putting ourselves on camera. So
my Nokia did not have a camera. So.
Yeah. Sad times. But no, so that's how I kind of started to get into it, and just kind of hit the ground running. And I don't know how I found you, Kadyn. I think it just the algorithm pushed you.
And I think the same for me. I think I just started seeing you pop up. And like I said, it caught my eye. And then I don't even know, I think we just started going a couple of messages back and forth. And then we started talking even more with fantasy football. And I'd put out there like looking, we needed someone else. And you're like, I'm in. And then here we are. Yeah. So it's just, and that's the crazy part about social media. The fact that we have someone in Arizona, Florida, and Georgia right now, all doing the same job that we would not know of each other unless it was for Instagram.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of the really, really cool parts about being in the industry now is that, we're not siloed to our individual states and stuff. And we already have the little subtext with the LOs in the league, and the collaboration on that level is really cool. So it's pretty awesome.
Well, and I'm old enough to where when social media first started, they called it social networking. And I think a lot of people forget that it's actually supposed to be like a networking tool. Now, there is a lot of media out there, obviously, but like at the end of the day, I still view a lot of it as an actual networking tool because that's what it was for a few years before it really started to take off. I mean, when Facebook first started, other than MySpace, like that was my first run-in with social networking, social media. And I had to have a college email to log in. I could go see, I can't remember if I could be friends with people outside of my college, my university, or if it was just internal. I can't remember how that was. This was in like 2005. So like this was a while ago, but I've always looked at it more of a networking tool than a lot of younger people because they don't know it quite as like, I'm going to go get to know people as much. They see it more of like something you consume. Versus like it was more of a way to create connections and meet new people. It's two different types of uses, and you can still do both. That's the beauty of it now. It's like it's morphed into like you can use it however you want. You can still do both. But I love the networking side of it. I need to get better at doing that and seeing that a little bit, and seeing it as a networking tool a little bit more.
Yeah, and just engaging in that was a hard thing I had hard thing to deal with for a while. Was like you just think you post and ghost. And it's just you can like if a video goes viral, I kind of learned just post and ghost because it's like there's only so many comments you can reply to, and they're horrible. But then taking the time out of your day to go engage on other people's stuff, and supporting the people that in the industry and whatnot, and just quick little. I heard someone say everyone remembers the comments you get. You never forget them. The likes are just like that simple, but you never forget the time that someone took the time to just write something small. So,
well, and that's something I started when I first started marketing on social media. I didn't measure my success of a video based upon the likes or the views or anything like that. I base it whether or not I'm successful. I gauged it on how many conversations did I start. That's really like more of the networking aspect of it. And you building a community, which is really that's where the fortune lives, man. Yeah, so walk me through like the first couple of videos that you made. Where I know you said that you weren't super scared to be on camera, but did you still feel a little awkward, or was there some anxiety of like, okay, I'm going to post this. Like, what are people going to think? Like, go through the mindset of that.
Yeah, for sure. So there was definitely awkwardness, but it wasn't like it was like a nervous thing. It was more of I hadn't done it before. So my first three, I had a guy I know who does video stuff. I had him film it at our corporate office.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, and it didn't take a super long time. And I had somewhat scripted stuff. But as I was starting to do it, I was like, okay, like this is different. This is very different because the more you do it, the more you hear yourself. And so now if I'm writing a script, I know how I'm going to deliver it and I know how it's going to look on the other end. Even when I'm filming it, like I know, okay, I need to do another take because that sounded bad. Like
the inflection was bad or something was off
right.
there.
Yeah. So, but the first few were like that. I mean, it was really helpful actually to have somebody else there, not in the industry, because we would just kind of go back and forth about a little bit of stuff. He's a little bit younger than me too. And he had just got married. And so they're at the stage where like, they're not ready to be home buyers, but they know that they want to do that eventually. And so he would even ask me some stuff that would prompt, oh, hey, maybe I should include that in what I'm saying. And so that was super, super helpful to have, because he's my audience, right? Sure. So it's not just, you know, if it was somebody more advanced, they might have tried to throw some stuff in that they knew, but like maybe I didn't know as well yet, or that just wouldn't come across well. But he was literally my audience giving me real-time feedback. And so that helped a lot. And then again, once you do consume other people's content, you start to pick in what you like and say, okay, I can do that now. Once I figure it out, okay, here's how to use a hook. Here's how to envision the cuts in my mind when I'm scripting, so then deliver it. It just gets easier and you get kind of more used to it and start rolling.
Well, and one of the things that you talk about how you consume other people's content, and I don't know if this has happened to y'all yet, but it will soon because y'all are both really good at content. But having someone tell you like, okay, I watched your videos and I took this from your video, like a lot of people when they first start out, they're like, you're copying me, you're stealing. But like I'm to the point now to where that is super humbling, but also like really cool that people say that about my content. And that's one of the things that like keeps me going, is that I want to help people learn how to do this. This is something that's powerful. It's just going to this is the future. Like we are still so early on this. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you've been doing this, what, 3 years now, you said? So like, dude, you could have another 20 years of doing this or more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's like, there's newsflash, like there's no secret guideline somewhere that nobody knows about. Right. I mean, guidelines, they are what they are. So it's not like anything we put out is like this secret info. It's just, hey, we're putting it out, or we're putting it out creatively. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was one, What's a Mortgage? So he's on there. He's real popular. He's good. I did one that was very similar to one that he did. And I actually got the idea, not from him, but I saw Shivani do one, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, like that's a good topic. Like I need to do that topic. And so I did it, and Min had just done one too. And I commented on one of his other posts, and somebody replied to my comment. First of all, he misunderstood what I said. He thought I was being negative, but I was like, absolutely not. It was a compliment. Like wasn't sarcastic. I was like, I don't know how he misunderstood that, but okay. And so then he said, oh, this guy can, hate on you, but he's going to copy your content. And I was like, cool. All right. Well, can you go say that on my post? Like go comment on mine and call me out, be a troll, because I need some algorithm boosting. But it's just funny that like that can, I think, be something that prevents people from getting started. Yes. Is saying, oh, I don't want to be a copycat. It's like, well, number one, the likelihood that we have the exact same audience is pretty low. Yes. But number two, like, it doesn't matter. Like if you have an intake call with somebody before they apply and you're talking to them about mortgage options and they go shop you, well, that other loan officer is probably going to have a very similar conversation with that person. So, I think that can be a barrier for people, but it's really just kind of an internal, you know what, don't care what people say. If nothing else, do this for me, because it also makes me better in conversations with potential clients. Yep. because I also can distill things down quicker and simpler than feel like I'm pulling up, reading a paragraph out of the Fannie Mae handbook.
Yeah, I would say like the hook format, the 30-second to 45-second format of getting information out has definitely helped me think of quicker, faster metaphors, even for just explaining things to people. That has been huge, because I know no one wants to hear me like go mortgage nerd and just babble on about like, and then they just don't even understand what I'm trying to say. That's worse, and that's what's been super, super helpful. And then
you don't even want to do that. Like that's not what, that doesn't help anybody.
No. Also, what I was going to say with what you said about, like, I'm air quoting, copying. There's so many people who use the same exact scripts, and I see it. I don't care. I used to care. I thought someone had like taken my early on. I thought someone had taken my kind of process of what I tried to put a video together. I don't care anymore. I'm not saying there's people who copy me now. I'm just saying I see it across, and what you said is so important. Of our audience is not the same. For the most part, we are not going to have the same audience. And if anything, if you're new to making video, copy someone else. It's going to make you more comfortable to do your own thing. Not everyone can just start doing their own thing right away. It's not easy to do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And even internally, like I've given my scripts to other LOs and said, hey, go do it. And by the way, one of them has. So like a lot of people just won't take action on anything. So just doing it puts you, further ahead of most other people.
So when you first started making content, I mean, like, what was your driver there? I know you've got a background in possibly wanting to become a teacher, similar to me. So, like, was that the driving force there? Was it what was it that made you press the record button the first time?
Yeah, for sure. So we had to do this exercise at the end of last year of what is your superpower. And I think one of mine is education. That's what I lean on heavily. Like one of the things I love doing is empowering people through knowledge to help them make a more confident and better decision. And so I love doing that. And so that's kind of what got me started in doing content. And I never got into it thinking, all right, I'm going to get X number of deals by doing these videos, right? Like if those came, then great. But I really want to have a place, number one, where I can just educate and talk to as many people at one time as possible. But number two, I want to have a place to push agents because that's just the way it works in our industry, right? Like the agent is the entry gate to the rest of the process, right? But at the same time, technically it should be us, right? Because you kind of want to know your numbers before you actually start looking, but that's just not how people work. So I wanted agents to have a way to say, okay, I don't know how to answer that question, but my LO does, right? So boom, pull up Instagram, right? Or when I get a new referral, push clients there because number one, now I know who they are. I can follow them. We can have a connection on that level. But number two, they may be seeing one thing that gives them the perception. I mean, obviously, I would say it was true, but it gives perceived authority on my end, right? Which is a little stickier from a sales perspective, but it also helps them feel more comfortable in their decision and what they're doing.
So one of the first steps of, because like it or not, like we are in sales, whether we are, I hate labeling Matt because like I don't sell anybody on a house. I don't, but I do sell myself. Like you have to sell yourself. Now, whether you do that very passively through education or whatever, like we are still in sales. So we are trying to convince people to use us when there are thousands of options out there, tens of thousands of options. But one of the first step in sales is to establish rapport. So even if I didn't do that on my intake call or an email or whatever, them having a backup of going and seeing my social media, that is another way for us to build rapport with them because they feel like they know me a lot of the times when we start talking and the trust factor is already there. People do business. You've heard this a million times that they know, like, and trust. That's the power of social media that you can do all of that through a video. So I love the strategy of like, hey, here's my page as well, or here's a video that I made on that topic. Not only is it a time saver, but like, who knows? They could go also look at your other content like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we just destroyed social media and talking
Yeah.
about all of that. We have so many different. I mean, what's funny about that for the three of us is, like, I would say for the most part, Dom, you had a kind of an idea with doing video with your past job. I had no social media background. I did not post. I did not do anything with my Instagram probably for 3 years before being a loan officer. My wife still kind of makes fun of me for that. And then Nate, I mean, you kind of just, you've been doing it. Like I wouldn't even say you just started doing it all of a sudden. I feel like you were like that slow build into it. So it's cool to see you have 3 different paths of getting to close to the same point.
One day I'm going to write a book, and it's going to be called Meme Your Way to a Million. And it's going to talk about the story of how I started making memes back in the day. That was my first intro to like marketing on social media. And it progressed. It started with memes, and then it was like some pictures and some written form. And now it's like a lot of video form. So that's going to be the book. It's going to hit the shelves in 2033, 10 years from now. Y'all go ahead and, yeah, you can pre-order now though. Like just Venmo me, pre-order. I don't save it. Don't worry. I'll get a
Venmo in the description. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Link in the description. Use code more than mortgage for 15% off.
Right. I love it. Well, and we kind of covered this with how has your past jobs, like you talk about the one where you were helping with Facebook ads, but like how have some of your past jobs helped with what you do now? Like, so Kadyn was a project manager, and so like you can understand, okay, you're juggling all this stuff, and I was a banker. I also have an education background, so how did your former self help you be a better loan officer?
Yeah, for sure. So, well, actually, I'll go back to college. So I did pest control in college, but there was a door-to-door sales component of that. Mm-hmm. And so got, real used to rejection early on, right? Not to mention, high school with the ladies, but that's a different podcast. No. So that door-to-door, like in high school, like I saw, okay, this is just baseline, the most hardcore form of sales that you can do. I mean, you're not just, it's not a pattern interrupt. I mean, you're showing up at somebody's house. That's where they live, right? To sell them something that they probably don't want. So that was my first intro to like super hardcore sales. And then, so fast forward to the job I had before this, it was one call close over the phone. And so it was very similar, right? I mean, I had to build rapport, qualify, present, and close typically within 45 minutes. And so that was kind of tough, but the avatar we were selling to was real estate agents. And so I kind of knew their plight. And so I kind of know what they think about and struggle with on a day-to-day basis. And it's not super different than anybody that owns a business or that's already in sales. So it wasn't necessarily super industry heavy though, but where I use that more now, because I don't use super big sales techniques, I guess. Like I don't feel like I close anybody, but I don't have a problem with asking for a sale, like asking for a meeting or for a yes, or like send me a client. I'm okay with that. But it's more of also helping agents interact with their prospective clients. Cause I'll hear agents script practice and I'm like, okay, like you're cause I'll hear it. They're fighting objections before they get one.
Right.
Right. And so, and because of that last job, I can have a conversation with a borrower to where they may say something about rates, but like that doesn't matter, right? I know how to listen to them, to listen for the real objection or real issue that they're having, and then address that and help them move past it, right? And so helping agents be able to do that, I think, is a good value add for me. And so for me, that's the biggest thing.
And that's huge. Something you said right there is like something that it doesn't matter what industry you're in. One of the things that throttles growth so much is what you just said, where you're anticipating the objections and you're preparing for the objections already, which like you think, okay, I'm prepared for this conversation. When in reality, their real objection is 2 or 3 questions deep. and you're only taking the first initial question or rejection, and you're not peeling back the onion anymore. Where like, if you are not actively listening and finding out what the actual objection is, like you will never close that deal.
Yeah. Like one of the worst things that, and this is just all of sales, is like preemptively assign someone an objection.
Right.
Right. So, because that's different than labeling, right? If you know Chris Voss and his stuff, like labeling is a big thing, which is absolutely true. Like, but labeling is really kind of just reframing what they say. But preemptively assigning somebody an objection, that's no good, because they could say, oh, that seems a little bit high, and then for us we can go, yeah, like you're probably thinking the rate is high, right? Whoa, no. Well, what are you doing? They didn't say anything about that, right? Like they don't. You're not there yet. But then you've kind of you've backed yourself into a corner where it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You expect to have a certain objection, so you're going to set yourself up to get it so that you can fight it. But that's really, then it's not a conversation anymore. Right?
Well, one of the things that I see loan officers do is that conversation right there. They say, man, that payment is higher than I thought it would be. And you're like, well, the rate is higher. And it's the exact same things. Like, no, I've actually used mortgage calculators before. So I was expecting the rate. Like, okay, so then what is it? And now you're playing defense as the salesperson. You're playing defense instead of saying, all right, well, let's break this down and go through the numbers so we can see where that's coming from. 9 times out of 10, when me being in Florida, it's insurance. They're under budgeting for insurance almost every single time. So I barely even talk rate. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I educate when we come to that part, but like, man, that payment seems high. Okay, well, let's go through the numbers and we can see where we're not lining up. And it's almost always insurance. It might be taxes. If it's someone moving from Alabama and then they're not anticipating Florida taxes or Florida insurance, like that's a big deal. It's a big change.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that a lot of people, I hear them start to do is they'll argue with prospects or argue with clients. And like, we can't do that. That's not where I don't want to argue with anybody. Right now, at a certain point, like know who you're dealing with, right? If you're dealing, like touch on the disc profile, if it's a super high D, they might actually need that a little bit to, kind of bump up against them a little bit. But if we're at a place where we're arguing with people about their feelings on the market or whatever, like that's not a good spot. Like we're never going to succeed. And so I think if we can help agents with that, number one, they will reciprocate that, right? Mm-hmm. Hopefully with referrals. But number two, like I think what we all want is to work with people that we enjoy working with.
Yep.
And to give the client, so the buyer, the borrower, the experience that we want them to have, right? Which is at the end of the day, really should be a team of people that are really, really good at what they do that make the buyer the hero, right? I mean, we could talk about transactions where, we did some cool things, but at the end of the day, it's about the buyer being the hero, not us, not the agent. And so I think helping people do that also creates clients for life, which is important.
Yeah. And I know we touched on it. But like the whole arguing thing, it all stems from listening. And that was one of the biggest things I learned probably over the first year and a half is everyone you hear the word script thrown around, and I've always wanted to throw up every time I've heard it because I'm like, I've never had the same conversation twice. Like everyone's gripes are different. Everyone's different. Their concerns are different. And that's why you ask those, you could ask, sometimes I ask 3 questions on top of just, like I'll ask the first one and then I'll ask 3 more. Like I'm going to get to the bottom of that before we even dive into something else. And financial psychiatrist, that's what I said. That's what I said. And I always will, is just got to listen. And that will probably shut down all of the arguments potentially happening. Cause that's 2 people not listening to each other is what an argument is.
Yeah. They're talking to each other. They're not listening. Yeah. Well, and so obviously Kadyn alluded to, he would like to be a psychiatrist if he was not doing this. I mean, I think that's where he's. So I always like to ask this when I'm talking to people in our industry, if you were not in the mortgage industry, like what do you think you'd be doing?
Man, that is a super great question because I have no idea. I'd probably be selling something. right? Because like you can ask me that, and I could give you like the kid answer, right? It's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I could, pick out whatever. I'd be a professional pickleball player, right? But like that's not real. So coming from where I came from,
yeah,
do what?
Not with that attitude, it's not.
Yeah, okay.
You've never had it mentally.
This is your sign to quit your job and start playing pickleball professionally.
I mean, hey, never say never, right?
Right.
But coming from where I came from, I'd probably still be selling something.
Yeah.
Now what? Who knows, right? But I'd probably still be selling something just because of where I came from. But yeah, I mean, I kind of fell into the mortgage industry just on a personal referral. So,
well, that's what I always tell people. Like, nobody at career day in elementary school, nobody's like, I want to be a mortgage broker. Nobody says that. Nobody says that about realtor, but go ahead.
Especially kids of lenders.
Yeah.
End up being lenders. What is that? What is that about?
I did have a weird conversation with I can't remember if it was my 8-year-old or my 6-year-old. I've got too many kids apparently, but I can't remember what they said. And they were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they said a YouTuber, which is a very common.
That's dude perfect. That's dude perfect coming in. I know it is.
Right. And so but then me being the salesperson that I started peeling back the onion. I'm like, why? Because I never, that wasn't an option for me, obviously. And so I started, and they're like, well, that's what you do, Dad. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I do like that they don't want to be the mortgage side of it, I guess, but it's interesting that their perception is that that's what I do for a living. When in reality, awesome. It's just a tool that I use to do what I actually do for a living. That's
really cool. And so this is a little bit of a tangent, but I'm going to go here real quick because you mentioned Dude Perfect also. So if anybody is hesitant though about making content, I'd say jump in because the week between Christmas and New Year's, my wife's family has a property out in the country over here. And so we went, and my son loves Dude Perfect. My 4-year-old is nuts about Dude Perfect, loves the rocket battles. Okay. So he's been asking for 2 years. He's 4. For 2 years, since he was 2, he's been asking for a real rocket with an engine. So we got him one for Christmas. I built it, put it together. Nice. And so because I did my content, I put together a little rocket battle video for him. He was the subject. And to watch him watch that was one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to experience. And so for me personally, my family is I love my family, super passionate about that. And so to watch that happen was really, really cool. So if you're hesitant about content, there are other benefits other than just professionally.
Well,
so it's a really cool thing to be able to do. And I posted it.
From a dad's perspective, saying that all this is, so if you're creating content for your family too, you don't necessarily have to post it, but it's no different than home videos and home movies. This has been going on for 30, 40 years. It's just a different way that quite frankly, is way easier. And we can make so much cooler content for our family. My kids love the videos that I make for them that the public never sees, but they absolutely love it. And it helps them get interested in something other than just being in front of video games all the time. It helps them get outside. I'm going to sound like such a boomer here saying all this, but it helps them get outside. It helps them stay active. That's very important. I mean, that's teaching them teaching them to be active and also to create something like that. That is, they're sitting there and my 8-year-old's gotten to the point to where he can be like, no, Dad, let's shoot it over here. So he's starting to pick up an eye for that, which, I mean, this is a skill that could take him. He doesn't have to be an influencer or a YouTuber or whatever, but when I asked him recently, and it was always I want to be a professional baseball player. I want to be a professional golfer. It was an athlete. And I asked him the other day, I was like, hey man, what do you think you want to be when you grow up? He's like, I want to be a video editor. That is a phenomenal skill that is marketable. That is a real thing that you could actually do, and you could work on doing it. It's like all these parents that have been teaching their kids coding for 10 years. This is another way that this is something that this is a skill that is going to be marketable for years to come.
And then you don't need to hire one.
Exactly.
There we go.
Yeah. It's I've got an in-house editor.
Yeah. To go back and touch on just the video making, I've actually, you obviously have to get over the hurdle that we talked about. There is that first entry level hurdle. You have to get more comfortable with it. And you have to get used to just posting. But I kind of repressed this memory, and I'm going to do it now. So I'm putting this out to you too. So I do it right after this pod. The first video I ever made actually was around Christmas. Not even mortgage related, probably 2 or 3 years before I even got into lending. And my dad got a Chewbacca mask for Christmas, and it was a big deal. I forget what movie it was from, but he got it. I know it's Star Wars. I meant like a different movie with the Chewbacca mask. I made a video of us being Han Solo, Chewbacca, and there was one other one, but it was me, my brother, and my dad. So I'm going to post that after this. But like the joy that the family got from that, and still talks about it from one video we made, sledding on snow, acting like we were in the Millennium Falcon. Like those when you talk about your kids doing it, like it truly is. Like I used to hate taking pictures, and I understand now that you take pictures so you can go back and look at it. Because I was like, oh, what are we doing this for? It's a video now, and then like taking videos and putting these things together for your kids. So when they're older, they go back and look at, oh, I remember making that, and that was cool. So, so much more powerful than we think.
Even just like from the sports side, because I'm starting to experience that with my oldest. I've shown him videos of him playing t-ball versus him playing kid pitch now, and to see a light bulb go off, and it helps them have so much confidence. Like, oh, I have gotten significantly better at this. And now he's got confidence to then like, okay, and there's a little bit of patience too. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there explaining like, dude, you were 5 here and you are 8. Yes, you grew, but like there was work that you put in to get to this level, you know, like as an 8-year-old. Mm-hmm. And now he's sitting there. He's able to visualize the fruits of his labors and to see progress, which is the kind of feedback that every single human craves. And so even little stuff like that, I mean, you don't have to go and post it online. I think that's a big misconception with some people. They're like, well, I don't want to post it online, but that's fine. Like if you're not in a job where you don't have to post it, like go for it. But I would still encourage you to make videos like that for your kids or whatever, your family.
Absolutely. I'll ask you one last question, Dom. I have it on here, and I think it's a very good question. A quote or a book that kind of helped you grow your business or change your mindset. It could just be a favorite quote. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not a huge like single quote guy because
you're deeper than that.
Well, I'm kind of like a skeptic, right? Okay. So I want context, right? That's what I want.
That's fair.
But books, I got 2 of them. One of them I like literally just started, but I know it's gonna be a good one. So the first one that I have finished is called "It Takes What It Takes" by Trevor Mawad. So Trevor Mawad, he actually, which I found this out after I read the book. He passed away, unfortunately, in the last couple of years. But he was Russell Wilson's one of his best friends and his mental performance coach. And so it basically is about a concept he calls neutral thinking. So it's not like positive thinking, like essentially lying to yourself that like everything's going to be okay. We're always going to have a positive outcome, because when it doesn't, like it's hard to deal with that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then it's not negative thinking, right? Which is just negative thinking, like, the side effects from that, right? It's just that works it doesn't work every time, right? So it's more about neutral thinking. It's like, okay, like it is what it is. What do I need to do next? What do I need to do to improve? And he goes through the specifics of that. And one of the best things he uses an expletive that I don't use, but he says, stop saying stupid stuff out loud. Right, which is like one of the simple things you can do. But he pulls a bunch of stories from working with like Georgia and their 2018 run, Alabama football teams. It's a lot of sports stuff because that's like what he used this with. But the analogies in business are super applicable, right? And so It Takes What It Takes is definitely a good mindset book that you can, which I'm also typically not a huge like mindset guy, but that is something that I think can be kind of overlooked because it's usually like this mystic thing. But if you approach it the right way, it can be very helpful. So that's one. And the other that I'm not done with yet, but just like the first, I don't know, I listened on Audible. The first 10 minutes was like, this is awesome. It's Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blunt or Blount. I don't know how you say his last name, but it's about approaching prospecting as like, hey, this is the thing that needs to be protected. And like, you have to be good at this. You have to always do this to succeed in business. Now, is prospecting our favorite part of the job? No, right? Like it's barely, it's probably 1% of salespeople's favorite part of the job, but it is so important, and our businesses will die without it. And so those two, I'd say, are definitely must reads on the shelf.
I like I like that it takes what it, just you explaining it takes what it takes. Because I don't know, I had very much negative thinking in college and baseball. It took me getting out of school and changing my mindset. I was super negative. But I feel like I'll get upset doing home projects for sure. That's when my negative side comes out. But for the most part, I feel like I am pretty neutral because I like to call myself a realist. I don't go up too much. If anything, I do go, but it makes a lot of sense of going, okay, this happened. How are we going to fix it? Versus like, stuff hit the fan, right? I'm going to say it, shit hit the fan. We can cuss on here. All right. But like, no, I really like that. So I'm going to look into reading that one.
I haven't read either one of those. I wrote both of those down, but same kind of thing. Like I was negative on the golf course in college. And then it took me not playing golf to learn how to play golf. Like I would do anything to have the skill that I had back then with the knowledge that I have now. And I remember, I played with a guy who he used to play on tour. He used to play on mini tours. He never made it on tour, but I remember I played with him. He's in the mortgage industry now. Shout out Bryant. I doubt you'll listen to this because your attention span is not this long. I know you. But anyway, so he was Jason Duffner's roommate in college at Auburn. And he was pretty solid. He's still a pretty good golfer. But I remember the first time that I played with him, he was actually recruiting me. And I was asking about a hazard or something like that. And I was like, well, I don't want to go there. He's like, why are you even looking there? I'm like, because it's in front of, like, I can't go there. He's like, why are you not focusing on where you want to hit it? Stop focusing on where you don't want to hit it. Focus on where you want to hit it. Because if you're thinking about that, like you're going to be at the top of your swing, like, oh, there's water right. Like, don't fan it right. And the first thing you're going to do is either pull hook it left or you're going to fan it right into the water. It is visualization and like also just like focus of where you want to go. So that's what I love about golf is like so much of those lessons can be translated and carry over into your business life or even personal life.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's also super important, like for newer people in the industry. I mean, even for people that have been in it for a long time to like pick up on these things and that's good, but especially for newer people in the industry, because one of the things that you can fall into is seeing the trap of social media. And like, we all post our successes, right? Nobody posts our failures. Right? We definitely don't do that. But I think, if you're someone new in the industry, to be able to have the right frame of reference walking into it, right? Like one of the things that I would tell somebody that if they were about to jump in is like, hey, you need to have a runway. Right. And you need to have a runway for a couple reasons. Number one, like just financially. And that's with any job that's based on performance and commission. Like you need to be able to give yourself a certain time period, right? 3, 6, 12 months, however long you can before you start to reap the rewards financially. Mm-hmm. But number two, we kind of touched on this before, experience is actually doing the job. You need to have a runway for that. And so you can learn the right mindset. Right? Like the right way to approach the job too, because now like with what Nate, like that was, I think really powerful, that quote that you just said, right? Because now that leads us into conversations with agents and with potential borrowers. It's like, hey, I'm not going to think about what if this goes badly, right? What if they go, on better.com, right? And they find a rate lower, like, what am I going to do? Like, just forget it. Don't even think about that. Focus on what's in front of you, I think is really, really powerful.
Yep.
That's all you can do. I mean, especially now, you have to, you've had it with pest control. Like, the negative is coming, but if you mainly focus on the positive, and that's what we do with social media. We want to put out the positive, but yeah, I mean, if you're sitting negative, always look, or sitting neutral, always looking positive, it's a much better place than expecting negative to come.
Yeah, for sure. Not even for yourself, but that's what you put out. Like if you are that way, that's what I mean. Like with new people, if you are that way, you are going to be different. You are going to stand out in the industry, right? I mean, I'm sure we all know people, maybe work with people, whatever, that are just negative about everything, right? And so if you're putting out that neutral thinking, right, not necessarily overly positive, but it is what it is. Let's help you. You're going to do way better in this, and honestly, way better in any relationship and life circumstance that you got.
100%.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Dominic, family man, Saints fan, mortgage lender. Thank you.
Who dat?
Yeah, I can't say thank you enough. I appreciate you being our first guest, and
I learned a ton.
Yes, so much. And I was going to say, where can people find you? Instagram, YouTube, whatever you got.
Yeah. So thank y'all so much for having me on. Super honored. Certainly my pleasure. So on Instagram, just at Dom_Landry is where you can find me. That's pretty much the only place that I post stuff now, which probably should change. But that's where it's going on.
Okay. All right.
So you don't have a MySpace? I tried to bring MySpace back, and even Tom reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, bro, like, this is the drink over."
Well, so I was never allowed. I tried to get away with it, but I got shut down by the parents.
I was very similar for me, but
that one didn't last.
I am starting the petition to bring Vine back. That's what I want. Vine was fire.
Elon will do it.
If anyone's that's 100%. He'll do that. But no, thank you again. I didn't even say it at the top. This was more than mortgage. I'm not even saying the podcast name. I'm being horrible, but again, thank you so much. Looking forward to getting this out and then continuing and learning so much from people like you, and hopefully you listening in and learning from the others we have on as well.
See y'all next week.
Yeah. My pleasure, y'all. Thank you.
Peace.